Our next speaker is Dr. Lakshmi, who's a consultant pediatric ophthalmologist at Al Salama Eye Hospital. And she's going to be talking on another very important topic, intermittent exotropia, timing your surgery and choosing your target angle. On to you, Dr. Lakshmi.
Thank you, madam, for the kind words. Am I audible and are the slides visible?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So I could not but start with a Guru Pranamam when all my teachers are there in front of me, especially Vijay madam, who instills the culture called pediatric ophthalmology in her fellows. Thank you, Chitra madam and Murli sir, for the opportunity. So while dealing with intermittent exotropia, I would like to initially start with these two scenarios. A 6-year-old operated for intermittent exotropia and having myopic astigmatism who remained orthotropic 6 months post-op. And at the same time, a 5-year-old who was operated for intermittent exotropia, but came out with recurrence and poor stereopsis. So why does this happen? The natural history and course of intermittent exotropia is still not well known, with early surgery associated with poor sensory outcome in most of the cases. Suppression and recurrence is very common, and the long-term outcome of surgery and conservative management is not well known still. Even though the incidence of intermittent exotropia is very common in our population, we are still at crossroads regarding pivotal issues in the management of intermittent exotropia, regarding early surgery, the fusional control, and the surgical success rates. Even though we have a set explanation on the progression of intermittent exotropia from an asymptomatic to a constant exotropia with poor binocularity, do all these children progress, or does it progress in all the cases, and if so, at what age, and how to assess and record progression in these children? So PDIC has come up with a randomized controlled trial which showed that deterioration was uncommon over the 6 months with or without patching. They observed children less than 3 years of age, but still there is no significant strength of evidence to recommend that patching as a treatment or observation. The role of conservative management has been emphasized by Kushner in his recent article in which he has shown that conservative management could defer the need for surgery in at least a large percentage of patients, but still this study was also having a little bit of limitation with loss of follow-up and analysis problems. The long-term cure rate in intermittent exotropia in surgical and non-surgical groups seems a distant reality, but at the same time, a silver lining in the cloud, the surgery appears to be effective in controlling angles and having a good control of intermittent exotropia and to retard progression. And the health-related quality of life has also been seen in both the occlusion and observation group to be the same. So we are left with treatment modalities of conservative versus surgical correction. And until we decide for a surgical correction, what should we do? And once we decide surgery, when to operate and what angle should we go for? So when we are dealing with children with intermittent exotropia of less than 4 years, we have to weigh between the advantages of an early correction versus the disadvantages, in which we have a better stereo acuity if we have a successful alignment, and the overcorrection when we have loss of stereo acuity and recurrences. This is mainly because we are still not sure about the etiopathogenesis of intermittent exotropia. We have many theories, and the sensory adaptations in intermittent exotropia range from a phoria phase having a good stereo acuity to a tropia phase where there is suppression and amblyopia rarely. And the late onset of exotropia cases could present with a double vision as well. And this has been largely explained by the hemiretinal suppression mechanism of Jampolsky, the hemiretinal trigger mechanism, which shows how the child would suppress or develop diplopia, and the monofixation syndrome, in which a foveal and diplopia point scotoma cause poor stereopsis. And there is also evidence that suggests that there is a different neural mechanism in strabismic suppression. So while we assess for progression, the Newcastle grading score remains the most important or most trustworthy as of now, in which we assess the home control as well as the clinic control. And we assess how much of time the child is having a dissociation. Grades of 3 to 4 or more are unlikely to improve without surgery. We have the office-based scale also for assessing the control, in which it is graded from 0 to 5, and worser grades need surgical correction. In this also, the time of dissociation is taken into account. Distance stereopsis tests like Randott stereo test and Frisbee-Davis 2 could be the way forward, because distance stereopsis is affected at first in intermittent exotropia rather than near stereopsis, which could be preserved till the end. So this could help us in timing surgical correction. While observing these children for surgery, whether they require surgery or not, we need to have a record of the size of the basic deviation, the increasing frequency of the manifest phase, development of secondary convergence insufficiency, and at the same time, we need to manage their refractive correction and suppression. So a child who's squinting more than 50% of waking hours with a poor Newcastle or a deteriorating score with decreasing distance stereopsis and a progression of intermittent squint or developing a scotoma could be a candidate for surgery. The surgical success rate is highly variable. It varies from 38 to 81%. This is because the definition of success is different in each of these studies. So if we have decided to surgically correct these children, we are more worried about the undercorrections. And Kushner has brought about the largest angle in outdoor measurement post-patch to be the target angle. And most of the studies would indicate a small initial overcorrection to combat this overcorrection, the exotropic drift over time. The role of age in overcorrection, overcorrection is mainly preferred in slightly older age groups because the unfavorable sensory outcomes in younger age group could be detrimental. The next question that comes to our mind is near distance disparities in intermittent exotropia. So Kushner has come forward with a modification of Burian's classification, in which he has introduced tenacious proximal fusion and AC by A ratio as deciding factors in managing these cases. So in this, we measure the patient after an hour of occlusion, which negates the tenacious proximal fusion. Afterwards, which we test the AC by A ratio, or the accommodative convergence accommodation ratio, which gives us a guide to tackle the situation. So this is a gist of the distance near measurement. After we do an outdoor measure or patch test, we find out if it is the distance and near is same, then it is a basic pattern, and we could do a recess resect or a bilateral lateral rectus recession. And if after the patch, the distance and near becomes the same, almost the same type of management, but if it persists after the patch, we go for the AC by A ratio, and if it is normal, then we could consider it as proximal convergence and we could go in for a lateral rectus recession. If it is high, then we should expect a postoperative esotropia and manage accordingly. If distance is less than near, we should suspect a convergence insufficiency, but of course, after ruling out pseudo-convergence insufficiency with the patch test. So once we find out that it is a basic type, we go ahead with either a bilateral lateral rectus recession or a recess resect procedure, or a resection is replaced by plication nowadays. In cases of true divergence excess, apart from the above said procedures, combined resect recess of lateral rectus in true divergence excess has been studied by Pradeep Sharma sir et al. In RP Center. Bilateral lateral rectus recession with an MR pulley fixation could be another option in true divergence excess cases. In convergence insufficiency type of intermittent exotropia, which is a less common variety, it could be either a unilateral medial rectus recession, a bilateral medial rectus recession, or a unilateral recess resect, a procedure in which the recess amount of the lateral rectus is based on the distance deviation and the resection amount of the medial rectus is based on the near measurement, has gained popularity. Slanting recessions and adjustable sutures have also been found to be promising in this situation. And while we manage a case of intermittent exotropia, we should have caution not to miss an A pattern deviation or a V pattern deviation, a dissociated horizontal deviation, or a lateral incompetence, which could prove detrimental in our surgical results. And causes of undercorrection or exotropic drift is mostly because of a missed refractive error or poor vision or amblyopia or a vertical deviation which is missed. These under or overcorrections should be managed with conservative methods initially at least, but resurgery should be considered in such patients if they persist, especially when they are in the amblyogenic age, to attain a better binocularity. So let us strive to build a generation with better binocularity. Thank you.
That was wonderful talk. Lot of clarity. You spoke very well. Questions?
Very nice talk, Dr. Lakshmi. I mean, this is one of the most challenging of all strabismus entities put together, I would say. Commonest
Yes, exactly.
and most difficult to manage. Like,
Yes.
we end up having to see them all repeatedly for recurrences, residual exotropias. So you have really taken us through the journey of intermittent exotropia management.
Thank you.
I would request SG ma'am, Sujata ma'am, for some inputs.
Yes.
In intermittent exotropia, see, it is, as Kavita correctly said, that it is very easy to get an undercorrection. And even if you get a good correction post-operatively, these children drift over a period of time. So we must remember this fact and prepare ourselves to have a little overcorrection to overcome this drift, especially the younger the child, the more the chances of this drift. So if you have a small exo in the post-operative period, this child will surely go into a drift, and it will see, VCR patients after 20-25 years, we started with 35 prisms, we operated. After 20 odd years, it is still 35 prism. Over a period of time, you will measure 6 prisms, 8 prism, 10 prism, and builds up to 35 prisms. So it is important to have a post-operative correction of aim for a slight esotropia in children with intermittent exos. And adult intermittent exos, however, though they have a large angle, they do better. Their drifts are a little lesser than that of children. So in adults, say you are operating a 30-year-old with a 65 XT, which has now become a constant XT as compared to the intermittency that these children have, the adults do a little better than the children in terms of drift.